Shocking truth revealed. Could it be that behind Kim Soo-hyun's quiet, almost invisible gaze, a burning passion for Kim Ji-won has been secretly growing all along? Whispers have spread through the entertainment world. But no one expected the truth to be this explosive. Hearts are racing. And the stage is set for a revelation that could change everything. Join Red Carpet Revealed as we dive deep into the untold story, starting right now. The soft hum of the air conditioning was the only sound in the otherwise silent penthouse apartment overlooking the glittering skyline of Seoul. Kim Soo-hyun sat alone by the floor-to-ceiling window, his eyes tracing the distant glow of street lamps and the endless trail of headlights weaving through the city below. To anyone who had seen him on screen, that confident smile, those piercing eyes, the effortless charm that had made him one of Korea's most beloved actors, this quiet, almost fragile figure would be unrecognizable. Here, away from the cameras, he wasn't the star whose name drew millions to theaters and drama premieres. He was just a man, holding on to a secret that had burned in his chest for far too long. For months, rumors had circled like vultures around his personal life. Whispers in the entertainment industry said there was someone who had captured his heart. Fans speculated endlessly, dissecting every glance, every coincidental meeting, every subtle social media post. But no one could pin down the truth, and that's exactly how Kim Soo-hyun wanted it. Because the truth wasn't just a relationship. It was an emotion so deep, so consuming, that he had built an entire private world around it. At the center of that world was one woman, Kim Ji-won. They had first met in the summer of 2022. On the set of a high-profile commercial shoot that brought together Korea's top stars for a luxury brand campaign. At the time, both were at the peaks of their respective careers, Soo-hyun fresh off a string of international hits, Ji-won riding a wave of acclaim from her latest drama. Have been nothing more than a polite professional encounter. But something happened in those first few minutes, a connection so undeniable that even the staff, who were busy adjusting lights and camera angles, sensed the electricity in the air. It wasn't just her beauty, though that was impossible to ignore. It was the way she carried herself. The quiet intelligence in her eyes. The unforced kindness in her voice when she asked him if he was tired from filming. She didn't treat him like an untouchable celebrity. She spoke to him like a person. And that, to a man who had spent years surrounded by people who only saw his fame, was a rare and dangerous gift. From that day on, his thoughts betrayed him. In public, they remained nothing more than colleagues, sometimes bumping into each other at award shows or industry events, exchanging the same warm but neutral greetings. But in private, in the quiet hours when he allowed himself to imagine a different life, she was there. He would replay their conversations. The way she laughed with her whole face. The way she tilted her head slightly when she was curious about something. It wasn't love at first sight, it was love that deepened in silence, nurtured by every stolen glance and unspoken word. The problem was, the world he lived in wasn't kind to such feelings. Any hint of romance between two A-list actors would ignite a media frenzy, dragging both into a relentless cycle of speculation and intrusion. Soo-hyun knew this better than anyone. He had seen what had happened to colleagues whose private lives were ripped apart by paparazzi. And so he made a choice, to keep his feelings hidden. To protect not just himself but her. If the price of loving her was silence, then silence it would be. Still, fate had a cruel sense of humor. The following year, in 2023, they were cast in the same drama, a sweeping romantic epic set in a fictional kingdom, with a love story that would span decades. It was almost too much to bear. Every scene they filmed together was an exquisite torture, blurring the line between acting and reality. There were moments when the director would call cut, but Soo-hyun couldn't immediately pull away. His eyes locked on hers as if the rest of the world had dissolved. The crew noticed, of course. They whispered about how real their chemistry seemed. How even the most experienced actors couldn't fake that kind of connection. During press interviews, they laughed off questions about their closeness. Ji-won, ever composed, would deflect with a smile, saying that working with Soo-hyun was simply comfortable because he was a professional and a friend. But behind closed doors, in the rare moments when they were alone between takes, there were silences thick with meaning. Once, while waiting for the next scene to be set up, she had adjusted the collar of his costume, her fingers brushing lightly against his neck. It was nothing, really. But to him, it felt like the earth had shifted. Soo-hyun kept a journal during those months, Not a diary of his daily activities, but a collection of moments and emotions too precious to lose. In one entry, written late at night in his trailer, he described watching her from across the set as she rehearsed a particularly emotional scene. "She's crying for the camera," he wrote. "It feels like she's crying for something real. I want to be the reason she never has to cry again." Filming wrapped, he felt a strange mix of relief and grief. Relief, because the constant proximity had been both exhilarating and exhausting. Grief, because the chapter of seeing her every day had closed, and he had no idea when or if they would work together again. The night of the drama's final wrap party, he found himself standing outside on the balcony, away from the noise and laughter inside. She joined him, wrapped in a soft shawl against the cool air. They spoke about the project, about how much they had learned, about how strange it would be to go back to their separate lives. Then she looked at him, really looked at him, and for a moment, he thought she knew everything. But she didn't say anything. Nor did he. The months that followed were masterclass in restraint. He saw her name in the news, attached to new projects, praised for her performances. He would sometimes send a brief message of congratulations. Nothing more than what any colleague might send. She would reply with a polite thank you. And yet, between those polite exchanges, there was a thread neither of them dared to pull. Then came the charity gala in early 2024, a star-studded event to raise funds for children's hospitals. Hadn't seen each other in almost half a year. When she walked into the ballroom in a floor-length silver gown, air seemed to change. Cameras flashed. Guests turned their heads. And Soo-hyun felt his heart kick hard against his ribs. They spoke briefly, surrounded by other attendees, their conversation light and inconsequential. But later that night, when the auction ended and the crowd began to thin, found themselves alone at the edge of the dance floor. A slow song played, and without thinking, he offered his hand. She hesitated for the barest second before taking it. They danced. And in the dance, there was everything they had never said. Every stolen glance on set, every carefully guarded text, every moment of pretending not to care. It was all there. In the way her hand fit perfectly in his. In the way she rested her head just close enough for him to feel her breath. When the song ended, they stepped apart as if nothing had happened. But both knew the truth, and it was heavier now than ever. After the gala night, Soo-hyun couldn't shake the memory of that slow dance. It had been weeks. Yet the feel of her hand in his lingered like a ghost he didn't want to let go of. He threw himself into his new project, a gritty crime thriller that demanded long, grueling days on set, hoping the work would be a shield against the thoughts that haunted him. But no matter how many lines he memorized, no matter how deep he buried himself in his character, this kept finding its way into his mind. Meanwhile, Ji-won had taken on a role in a romantic melodrama. A project that, ironically, their own unspoken story, two people who loved each other in secret, separated by circumstances beyond their control. Entertainment press quickly picked up on her emotional performance, speculating that she must be drawing from a real-life romance. When a reporter casually asked if she was in love, he smiled faintly and gave the perfect non-answer, "Aren't we all, in some way?" Those words hit him like a bullet when he saw them quoted in a magazine. Was she speaking in general? Or was it her way of sending a message without breaking the invisible line between them? He didn't know. But the thought that she might be feeling the same ache he did was both exhilarating and dangerous. It was in late spring that the dam finally began to crack. They were invited, separately, to a private dinner hosted by a mutual friend, a film director they had both worked with in the past. It was meant to be a casual gathering of close acquaintances, away from cameras and reporters. The moment Soo-hyun walked into the warm glow of the restaurant's private room and saw her seated at the far end of the table, his breath caught. They kept their distance at first, speaking only when the conversation naturally included them both. Yet every time she laughed, every time her eyes flicked in his direction, felt that magnetic pull tightening around him. By the time dessert was served, the others had drifted into smaller conversations, and he found himself beside her, the low murmur of the room making the space between them feel almost private. "You've been busy," she said softly. He's carrying just enough warmth to make his pulse jump. "Oh, have you?" he replied, his gaze steady on hers. "Oh, your last drama." And he hesitated, his throat tightening. It felt real. Something passed through her expression, a flicker of recognition, of shared understanding, before she looked away. It was, she murmured. It was the closest either of them had come to admitting the truth. Weeks that followed were a quiet storm. They began texting more often. Messages careful but undeniably personal. Inside jokes. Late night "are you awake?" check-ins. Brief exchanges about the things they missed in each other's lives. Still, they kept their public appearances separate, mindful of the ever-watchful eyes of the media. But secrets have a way of slipping through cracks. One rainy evening in June, Soo-hyun and Ji-won were spotted leaving the same art exhibition. Just minutes apart. The photos hit social media within hours, grainy, inconclusive, but enough to spark a wildfire of speculation. His agency denied the rumors with a standard statement about long-standing friendship, while hers brushed it off as a coincidence. To the most dedicated fans, the denials only fueled the belief that something more was happening. Privately, the incident shook them both. Over coffee in a quiet cafe far from the city center, she voiced the fear they had both been carrying. If this gets out, it won't just be about us. It'll be headlines. Paparazzi. People digging into everything we've ever done. I know, he said. But hiding you, it's starting to feel impossible. The words hung between them, heavy and trembling. By the end of summer, the pressure became unbearable. He was offered a leading role in an overseas film, a career-defining opportunity that would take him out of Korea for nearly a year. When he told her, she congratulated him. But he could see the shadow in her eyes. So that's it, she asked quietly. It doesn't have to be, he said. Voice low but certain. Not if we stop pretending. She stared at him for a long moment. And in that silence, every memory, every stolen glance, every unspoken confession seemed to surface at once. Finally, she reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Then let's stop. The decision was theirs. But the world would have its say. Just days later, an entertainment journalist, one known for unearthing celebrity secrets, contacted both their agencies with questions that cut too close to the truth. Before either could respond, the story broke online. Kim Soo-hyun and Kim Ji-won, secret romance revealed. The article detailed anonymous, insider accounts of their growing closeness during filming, the gala dance, and their supposed hidden dates at secluded locations. The backlash was immediate. Fans were divided, some ecstatic at the pairing, others furious, claiming betrayal. The media frenzy was relentless. Cameras staking out their homes. Reporters shouting questions whenever they appeared in public. Yet in the chaos, something unexpected happened. Instead of retreating into silence, Soo-hyun took control of the narrative. At a press conference for his upcoming film, he addressed the rumors head-on. Yes, said, his voice steady, his gaze unflinching. Feelings for Kim Ji-won. They are not new. And I'm not ashamed of them. Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters scrambled to fire off more questions. But he didn't give them the satisfaction. He ended the conference there, walking out with a kind of quiet authority that made headlines on its own. That evening, Ji-won posted a single photo on her Instagram, a close-up of two hands intertwined, no faces, no caption. Within minutes, the image went viral, racking up millions of likes and thousands of comments. To those who mattered, the message was clear: they were done hiding. In the weeks that followed, the frenzy gradually cooled. The public, as fickle as it could be, began to accept their relationship. Work offers continued to pour in for both of them. They knew challenges still lay ahead. There was a new lightness in their steps. One crisp autumn night, as they walked along the Han River, turned to him and said, "You realize this could have gone very differently." "Oh," he replied with a faint smile. "But I'd rather risk everything than spend another day pretending I don't love you." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she slipped her hand into his, the same way she had that night on the dance floor. Together they kept walking, two people who had spent years in the shadows, finally choosing to live in the light.